Good morning. We've got a lot of news today. Holy cow.
Good morning.
Rates are going up, and we're going to try to address a couple of questions that we're getting from a lot of people. And that, quite honestly, is whether or not we should use FHA or conventional with the rising rates. So let's take a look. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's kind of crazy because just 6 months ago, nobody was even talking FHA because you couldn't even get them accepted. But with the way that rates have gone up so fast, we get this question a lot, and we've been seeing it a lot more with my LOs on my team, as well as just with me looking at different scenarios. Is FHA does allow debt to income ratio to go a little bit higher, and in certain scenarios could actually make sense for buying power. When interest rates are really low, nobody was really talking about buying power, but now buying power makes a big difference.
It's getting tough for a lot of people out there. I mean, we saw rates jump, about another quarter point this week, roughly?
Yeah, we're not quite at those highs that we saw about 3 months ago, but we're right there. And I think with the data that's getting ready to come out, I think very well next week we could be looking at the highest rates of the year.
It's funny. I think if we go back and look, I think I estimated we were going to hit 7 by the end of the year. Just had a funny gut feeling we'd hit 7 by the end of the year, and I'm getting pretty close.
I don't know if I like that, but
it's not a prediction you wanted to come correct, but with the consumer price index that came out, was it 2 days ago, and we're still sitting at 8.3% inflation rate.
Yep.
Powell's sitting there going, yeah, we're going to do 3 quarters. And I still don't see how they don't go a point or more, because you've got it's logic. You've got 8.3% inflation rate, and you got a bond market, 10-year anyway, sitting down at 10%.
Oh.
Why do people want to buy any bonds?
I wouldn't.
I know it doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense. So it's one of those, and you keep going back to the Reagan years where they just made the decision, bit the bullet, knew it was going to hurt like heck, and instead of peeling the Band-Aid off, a little bit at a time, and I got hairy arms, so it hurts. They just ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah,
pushed the rates up and squashed inflation. And it worked. It worked. We ended up with numerous years of growth. And I just wish somebody would have the gumption to say, hey, what we're doing is not working. It's not pushing the inflation rates down. And then you got the threat of a railroad strike here.
Which I think they came to terms and agreement this morning.
They did. Oh, I didn't see that one yet. Well, that's good, because there was another wrench in the supply chain.
Yeah, I think that would have been very bad for us in the sense of the supply chain, and it would have further driven up cost. And I felt a little bit like that the railroad union, they're playing their cards. They knew, data comes out. Everything was very strategic with how they played that.
Yeah, they played it well. I mean, you've got an advantage. You're the main way to move freight. So
yeah, and the key is what a lot of people don't realize with that. They go, oh, well, I don't even ride a train. And I was listening to the radio, and they were talking about it this morning. They were like, yeah, but who even rides trains? I said, it doesn't matter about who rides. It's all the freight. It's all the oil that's shipped via the train systems too. There's so many different pieces that come into play via our train system in the U.S. that I believe the numbers were that there would be a $2 billion impact to the national economy daily if a strike occurred.
Wow.
That's nuts.
That's nuts.
So I'm glad we avoided that. That's positive. But it's been an interesting week.
Yeah, it has. And we'll see that when we get into the numbers in a little bit as well. But let's take a look at, what does it look like if we're comparing an apples to apples FHA loan? I know you were kind enough to work up some numbers for us.
Yeah, we kind of just drew up some quick numbers, and we took basically the scenario, right, of FHA and conventional, but we said 400,000 purchase price, 5% down. The only thing that would change between those options would be credit score of 680 or credit score of 740, and an FHA or conventional. So you're going to look at real quick your HOI, which is on there. Your homeowner's insurance is the same for both. Your property taxes is the same for both, right? Because it's based off the purchase price. So the only difference is going to be your interest rate that's offered and your mortgage insurance. And I didn't go in and price up specific on my scenario. I looked at some of kind of the national averages and said, okay, where are we at? It's going to have that has no cost to buy that rate. So like, what are investors offering at no cost to buy down the rate, right? So these are all options that you're not paying points. So in a 680 credit score, the prevailing rate that I saw was 5.75 with no points right now.
Wow.
And that gave you, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that total payment was, I believe, $3,000. I'm not seeing it. My thing is hiding it. $3,075 estimate, right? And that's FHA at a 680 credit score. But this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize. Whether I had a 680, a 700, a 740, it's still a 5.75.
Yeah.
Right. So there was no real difference between going 680 or 740 with FHA. Like there was no better interest rate. And FHA has a set mortgage insurance rate that's not tied to credit or the loan scenario, so to speak. So whether it was a 740 score or 680, that monthly MI at 251.85 remained the same. So for FHA, as long as you had a 680 or higher credit score, you were basically looking at a $3,075 payment on a $400K purchase with 5% down.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Well, let's take a look at those conventional options, right? So that very first one I want to look at, conventional 740 credit score. Still
that's a good credit score.
Still 400,000 price point, still 5% down, but that interest rate was 6.375 right now, which is right on that national average that's projected on Mortgage News Daily. They're hair low. I think they're at 6.3, but their scenario that they price out actually has points. So everything remains the same, but you notice higher interest rate by over 0.625% higher interest rate, but your monthly mortgage insurance rate is basically $92, so a lot less.
Because we were 240 or 250?
Yeah. But what does it do? Like, where does that balance? Higher rate, lower MI, your payment's basically $3,029. So you're what, $60 less?
Yeah, you're still $60 less.
$60 less, almost same difference. But the key and the positive here is that on the conventional scenario, at a 740 credit score, what happens with conventional? What can mortgage insurance do on conventional that's not happening on a 5% down FHA?
You can get rid of it once you hit a certain LTV.
Exactly. So you can get rid of mortgage insurance will drop off when you hit 78% LTV from the original balance. And the reason being between 80%, everybody says 80% is, 78 is when they're required by law to remove it. Usually between 80% and 78% is about 3 months. So it's kind of basically like a grace period for them to have basically 90 days to make sure they get it off your account.
Gotcha.
But the other side of that is most mortgage companies, if you continue to see growth like we've seen the last 2 years, as long as you have 2 years of payment history, you can begin requesting to have your MI removed potentially.
I actually got mine off last month. As soon as I made my payment, because I was tracking it.
Yep.
As soon as I made my payment, made sure it had gone through, I called them up, said I'd like to request my MI removed.
Awesome.
And they actually did it without doing a appraisal. or
That's awesome.
BPO.
Wow. That like a lot of investors are requiring. But how long have you owned your home, if you mind me asking?
Bought it 2018.
So not even
So
4
we
years.
refinanced about 2 years ago? Just about 2 years ago.
So great scenario. Some borrowers, a lot of lenders are going to want to do an appraisal, or
Yes.
At a minimum that BPO. But in this situation, they probably ran what's known as an AVM in their system, which is just an automated, estimate of value.
Yeah,
right?
valuation model.
And they probably saw, hey, he's way above it, we're good, and they removed it. You had good payment history, and your AVM probably came back very strong, and so they removed it. So
yeah, I mean, it literally took them, I think, from the first call I made to them, I got a call the following week. It's been removed, Mr. Rendo. I'm like,
awesome.
Really? Oh, fantastic.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at this third scenario. This third scenario is where things get interesting, because now we're doing 680 conventional. And this is the funny part, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had a 680 client 7 months ago, right?
Yep.
You were probably telling that client, hey, if we can go conventional, we need to go conventional. It's the only way we can really compete. Don't go FHA.
Okay.
Right? You know what I mean? A lot of agents were saying, like, because FHA was very, very difficult to get approved at the start of the year. No sellers really wanted to accept an FHA contract. So what ends up happening, right? So, 7 months, a year ago, all this market of the craziness, everybody was going into it, but rates weren't where they are today. So now we're seeing FHA contracts be accepted, right? And we'll go over numbers in a few, but FHA is no longer being thrown out the window.
No.
So we can start looking at, well, what happens? And this is where it gets interesting. Borrower's got a 680 credit score. Their interest rate's a 6.75 on this same scenario. Now, remember, on FHA, they were at a 5.75.
Okay. Yep.
So in this situation, they were a full percentage point lower on the same credit score if they went FHA. Now their MI, their mortgage insurance, is still lower than
not much
than FHA. And when we look at that total payment now, you're going to see that total payment is $3,225 basically. And we were only at $3,090 on the FHA scenario. So we're $130 less, $135 less going FHA. Yep. Now, $135 less, we're talking that could be $20,000, $25,000 in buying power.
Yeah.
And here's the key. FHA is the better option for this borrower. And FHA, they may be able to go to 56 debt to income ratio, whereas conventional, they're capped at 49.99.
Okay.
So not only is it a better monthly payment, but their debt to income ratio may be stretched a little bit higher. Now they can't get rid of the mortgage insurance, but remember, when you're buying a home right now, you're locking in what? The purchase price. You're just you're dating the rate, right? Because you can always refinance and get out, but that purchase price is locked in. And that's what we want to do, is lock in that purchase price, because all data is saying, hey, rates are going to go down at some point in the future. And a lot of people are projecting in 12 months. Some are projecting 18 months. I think the worst that I'm really seeing is around 24 to 26 months that we're going to see rates drop back down. So in those scenarios, if we're going to see rates drop back down potentially, why not take the loan that gives you the better buying payment, like the lower payment, the better option, because you're going to be considering refinancing in a year to 2 years down the road anyways. And if you're going to refinance and we see values continue to go up, you may find yourself in a scenario where now you can go conventional, your mortgage insurance will go lower, and then you've got 2 years or a year of payment history on a mortgage, which usually is going to help those scores go up as well.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no one says you have to stay in that FHA loan for the life of your ownership of that house.
Exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. So there's two sides of the coin, but mortgages can really be utilized to your advantage. A lot of people get their mortgage and then that's it. They don't think about the mortgage and they don't go, how can I strengthen my financial situation with the potential refinance? Maybe it's paying off debts, maybe it's not, but a lot of times it's just taking advantage of when rates go down and restructuring that. You don't want to do it too much because there is a cost to doing a refi. But if it's a full percentage point or more, it can make sense. Or if you're going from an FHA to a conventional, it can definitely make sense.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that the MI rate on conventional, depending on the LTV, that factor can drop as well.
Yep.
So if you're making, say, some extra payments on your house, on your mortgage payment, and you're knocking that balance down as well, and say you drop from 90 to 89, that factor can actually change.
Absolutely.
Calculating it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the big key with mortgage insurance. That's required anytime you put less than 20% down, but FHA requires it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But, in that situation, conventional takes into consideration the credit score, the debt to income ratio.
Yep.
DTI used to not really matter for MI. Within the last 6 months, it matters. Like MI companies are basing and changing their rates based off of what your debt to income ratio is.
Oh.
So we see some of that, and it's not major changes, but it could be the difference between, $190 MI monthly MI or a $200 MI. Might only be $10 a month, but $10 is $10.
$10.
And
you're always trying to minimize your payment, when you're looking at it.
Yep.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't necessarily look at the scenarios. They just get, oh, well, this is the best one. Well, why is it the best one?
Yeah.
Explain to me the differences. And I think that's important. And with a lot of people getting nervous at the payments right now, taking that little bit of extra time and explaining it to them that, hey, this is, like you said, marry the house, date the rate. This is what we're doing. This is what we can do down the road for you. There's options. You're not locked into the current mortgage that you have.
Exactly. And what, like we said, we're locking in that price because that's the biggest thing. When you're in a lease right now, what happens every year? It's adjusting, and we're seeing, leases are skyrocketing.
Yeah. Rent. The one thing that isn't going down is rental rates at all. And in Orlando, I think was number 1, number 2 in the country this past year as far as rental rates, averaging somewhere around 30% increase.
Wow. Yeah.
So you look at that and it's like, okay, I really seriously need to look at purchasing a home. Start building some equity.
Yeah.
So I think thank you very much, because that was a great breakdown of showing the differences, explaining the differences with difference in rates with credit rating, and difference between conventional and FHA. So that was excellent. Really appreciate that one, Joe. Well, let's hop in, because we've been going for a while here, to our next favorite thing, which is our numbers for the month, or for the week, excuse me.
For the week.
And boy, did we do a 180. August finished very strong in Orlando.
Yeah.
But last week, we went from 653 total sales at the end of August, dropping down to 390. That's a huge drop.
Wow.
I didn't calculate the percentage. I was a little nervous about doing that.
Now, we did have Labor Day in that mix, so I don't know if that,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that hit it, but that's if you're doing 50 a day, maybe you're up to, 450. You're still looking at a 200 unit drop in that week, which that's a big drop. And our median price dropped again, about 1.5%. So we're seeing the continued, which kind of expected as well, because, again, the families are back to school. Yep. Less families are out shopping. If they haven't bought, they're not going to buy. They're going to wait, to the mid-semester. So the pool of buyers is dropping as well out there. And then the other big thing is our original to final list price dropped $13,000. So that means we're seeing the continuation of the discounts from the original list price. And the original list price to sales price, this is the biggest we've seen. I think we were sitting somewhere around 15,000.
Mm-hmm.
We jumped to nearly $23,000 from the original sales price. If you're looking at a $500,000 house, that's almost a 4.5% price decrease from the original list price.
Yeah,
that's big.
That's big.
That's very big, and you can really see it in the final list to sales price percentages. We've dropped to 98% on the button overall, but here in the this is the 200 to 250, we're at 96.5. The 300 to 400, we're at 98. 500, we're basically 98. So you've seen a consistent drop.
Yeah.
So, on a $500,000 house, you figure you've got about $10,000 in negotiating room.
Mm-hmm.
We've got you and I have a contract that's closing next week that was listed at 350. We went in at 340. They didn't even balk. They didn't counter.
Yeah.
Yep, we're good. Yep, we're good. Let's go ahead. So it's there. It's out there. And then days on market has jumped up to 35.
Mm-hmm.
So this, if you look at the average 5-year days on market, we're right on it right now for the Orlando area. So that tells me we're in a complete neutral market. Actually, I think more of a buyer's market. And you see it here with the graphs, with the sales prices. The average, dropped tremendously from roughly about just under 5 down to almost 475.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the type of chart you want to see with weekly sales, where you got some consistency. Yeah, a little spike, but boom, dropping off the face of the earth down at 390.
Yeah.
Foreclosures are the same. And then average days on market is starting to spike. This is the largest jump we've had of 5 days, week over week.
Yeah. Definitely some context there. That's really, we're seeing, like you said, we're starting to see everything play into it, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing's on an island. We've got back to school. We have this, we have that, rates going up, uncertainty. We saw what was it, Tuesday, the biggest decline this year in the stock market on a daily.
Yeah. After those CPI numbers came out, man, poof. Yeah. Because everyone knew what Powell was going to do now. There were a lot of talk on the market, with people. And I got to admit, I was one of them. I was thinking January, they were probably going to do a shift. We kind of start to reverse their position, but with inflation staying where it is, I think they're going to have to hold it longer than I had originally thought or hoped for.
We look back and kind of the history books, and I kind of think I'm thinking back kind of like with all the stagflation that we had in the 80s, and so, where it's like, man, these rates are high, they're there, and they're just staying there.
Yep.
Right. There's nothing that there's a lot to see the amount of movement that the Feds have done, and they have no impact. And we talked about this. We were like, hey, if they really want to see an impact, we need that federal fund rate to be above inflation numbers.
Yep.
And we're not going to get there. It's not going to happen. That would be catastrophic for the economy.
It would just destroy. We'd immediately go into depression.
So we're not going to see that. And the hard part that we have to take into consideration is, even with everything going on, if we look over to we look over to Europe and to Asia, and we're not doing bad, right?
No, we're not. This is actually a worldwide economic recession that's going on.
Yep. China's
in a world of hurt. Their real estate is worse than ours was in 2008. They've got roughly $300 billion of non-payment on mortgages right now.
Yeah.
People just said no more because the builders were buying it to sell more homes and never actually building the homes.
Yep.
So, it's that they're just, and that their bond market has gone to heck. Japan's in a world of hurt. Australia's having the same problems with homes. Europe with
Yeah.
the fuel and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what's going to happen with their winter?
Yeah.
Well, it's to me, it's kind of scary with that right now.
And you look at the Russia and Ukraine war that's going on. Still, it's that we're starting to enter that phase where there's been an impact, but as we get closer to winter,
mm-hmm.
we're gonna see what does that impact really look like, because
Yeah.
that's when a lot of this, like the inability to produce electricity, the inability to grow the grain and this and that, all of that stuff that hasn't been happening, that now is when we're gonna start.
It's all gonna hit. It's all gonna hit. So, I feel blessed we're here. We're in a great state. We're in a great country. We're holding. I can live with holding for a while. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at our inventory and we see, the pattern that we've seen for a while is that our inventory levels are holding. And that's going to be one thing that will continue to help hold up this market, is as long, that inventory stays pretty level. And then again, we've got a strong employment picture here in Florida and Orlando. So, it just we take it week by week, and look at the numbers and, continue to do the best we can for our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's our numbers for the week. Anyone has any questions, always feel free to reach out to Joe or I. Our information is always below. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, please hit the like button, and we will see you again next week. Take care.
Rock it out, guys.